inspiration of people who are dedicated, who dedicate themselves to empowering and caring for others. She loves connecting with people and having fun. So please be sure to say hello after the platform. Our talk this morning is titled, History is Tired of Replacing Itself. Louise?
That song is so funny. My late father-in-law loved that song. So it was like a way of him being here with me. He used to sing it to me. It's pretty silly. It's really cracking me up. Oh, wait, let me grab. Since I don't have another one here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Let's try this again. There we go. And then I'm going to have to remember to advance my slides, but I'm going to be able to do it. There it is. Okay. So much just to get this going. Okay. There we go. Again, my name is Louise Jett, and my pronouns are she and her, and thank you for joining me today. I am indeed not my own grandpa. It's cracking me up, Daryl. But I am an ethical culture leader, and I'm certified by the American Ethical Union, and I'm going to talk about how history is tired of repeating itself. And I really believe it is. It yawns every time we declare the end is near. It cringes when cruelty puts on a new costume and calls itself necessity. It has watched us rehearse the same tragedies so many times that it must long, as we do, for peace. If history could speak, I think it might say, please stop producing reboots no one asked for. History doesn't need better special effects, it needs a better plot. We change the scenery, we rename the characters, we swap swords for drones, chariots for tanks, and parchment for screens. But somehow, the plot, the one about fear, greed, and forgetting our shared humanity, remains stubbornly the same. And yet, here we are, actors in the latest remake of an ancient story. Fear versus compassion, power versus integrity, indifference versus imagination. Every generation thinks its own script is new, but history knows better. It knows the cycle. It knows how readily we dress repetition as progress and call the facade transformation. So let's imagine history not just as a record of what has happened, but as a living being waiting to be surprised. Today, history is the audience, longing to see how the story of us might go differently this time. Philosophers have wrestled with this, fatigue, the weariness of cycles, and from their struggle, humanism inherits its greatest challenge, inventing what comes next. G.W.F. Hegel, the grand architect of historical progress, imagined the march of spirit moving through the ages. He tried to make history logical, to fit the chaos of human experience into reason's design. But real lives and real losses rarely stay within the logic's borders. His map of the human story was far too small. It left entire continents outside its frame, as if history belonged only to Europe's idea of itself. Then came Karl Marx, who took Hegel's grand design and turned it on its head. If Hegel drew history as a system, Marx redrew it as a struggle. He gave us the insight that power shapes everything. That history, too, is written in the language of labor and loss. He saw patterns where others saw accidents, but sometimes, in his fierce clarity, he forgot the tenderness of individual lives. And where Marx looked outward, Friedrich Nietzsche looked inward. He challenged the complacency of his century, asking each of us to live so authentically that we would welcome the return of every moment. He explored a psychological drive toward growth and strength, and he invited us into self-actualization. And yet, the generations after him weaponized his writings as a license to dominate, twisting his call for courage into an anthem of cruelty. And then came Hannah Arendt, the exile, the witness, the philosopher of beginnings. A Jewish intellectual who fled Nazi Germany, she witnessed her world torn apart and still refused despair. She gave us the language of natality, the simple, radical truth that every birth is a possibility, that the world can begin again through human action and imagination. She saw action as the highest human capacity, the means by which people come together to create a shared global community. Each of these thinkers struggled to name the pattern that binds us. Each tried in their way to explain why humanity seems destined to rehearse the same mistakes, and each in their own blindness left something out. They were all in their ways products of the times sought to transcend them. That too is part of the lesson. Our heroes, our philosophers, our reformers are all incomplete. And perhaps that incompleteness is what keeps the story moving. Our task as humanists is to take what is luminous in their thought and shine it wider. To learn not just from their wisdom, but from their blind spots. To keep rewriting the story they began, but with more empathy, more inclusion, and more courage. Hegel saw history spiraling toward self-knowledge, but admitted we rarely learn from it. Marx warned that history repeats, first as tragedy and then as farce. Nietzsche imagined eternal recurrence and urged us to live a life worth reliving. He asked the question, would you want to relive your life? And if your answer is no, you're not living it the right way, in his opinion. And Arendt reminded us that there is another way, that we can begin again. Humanists believe that renewal is not miracle, but choice. We are not prisoners of repetition, but we're its authors. And as authors, we can always make edits. So we turn to a moment in our own history when a few courageous people looked at the moral landscape of their age and decided to reverse the script. When the ethical culture movement was born in the late 19th century, it was not a refinement of the old moral order. It was an act of rebellion against it. The movement's founder, Felix Adler, a philosopher and a rabbi's son, looked at a society bound by dogma and hierarchy and said, enough. He dared to imagine that morality could stand on its own 2 feet, that goodness needed no throne in heaven, that ethics could be its own source of light. Soon, Anna Garland Spencer was standing right beside him, often just beyond the spotlight. Anna was not content to preach about goodness. She wanted to build it. Before joining ethical culture, she was the first woman ordained as a minister in Rhode Island, and she believed that faith in humanity meant faith in human structures, in education, in social reform, and in care. She taught that ethics must be lived in community, not recited from a text. Her theology was tender and stubborn. If the world was broken, rebuild it through relationships. And so while others debated theology, Anna Garland Spencer rolled up her sleeves. She lectured and taught about social work and philanthropy. She led child welfare and women's suffrage campaigns, and she helped establish or support reform associations like the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. She saw clearly what few did then, that justice is not an abstraction, that justice is a practice of care. To me, she is the steady heartbeat at our movement center, the embodiment of humanism's creative courage. If Adler was the architect, Anna was the builder. He drew the blueprint, she poured the foundation. She believed we could design new social structures that reflected our moral imagination, new ways of raising children, teaching students, sharing resources, resolving conflict, and honoring every human life. She helped pioneer the intellectual and institutional roots of what we now call social work by participating in early social service programs and advocating for structured relief work and social ethics. Anna Garland Spencer was in her time dismissed by some as impractical, too idealistic, too tender for the world as it was. That's very familiar to me. I've also been called those things. But perhaps tenderness is the most radical practice of all, because tenderness insists that the world can still be otherwise. And that is the spirit that we inherit. And as we muster the audacity to imagine new moral orders, we must also tend to real pain. I feel history's exhaustion most sharply when I look at our world's suffering. We're watching again and again the machinery of violence grinds on in Gaza and across our globe. Genocide has reduced entire neighborhoods to rubble. Parents search for their children in the dust and debris. Hospitals run out of water and supplies. We experience the heartbreak of starvation in a world that has more than enough to share. The images arrive on our screen so often that we begin to mistake repetition for inevitability. This is not a new story. It is the oldest one. The story of people rendered faceless so that their suffering can be dismissed. History has told it too many times, to indigenous nations, to enslaved Africans, to Jews under empire and genocide, and to civilians everywhere whose humanity has again been rendered expendable. It is the same ancient logic of domination wearing a modern uniform. When we recognize that pattern of who suffers, who is silenced, who is forgotten, we begin to wake from the repetition. Awareness is the first act of invention. To ignore this pain is to join the repetition. To speak even in sorrow is to resist it. So I speak to bear witness, to name the sorrow of the living and the dead, to honor the people of every nation, all the children of earth whose homes become history's battlefield. Even in the darkest storm, mercy still charts its course. There are those who boarded small boats carrying food and medicine toward wounded shores. Their flotillas are fragile. Many times they don't make it through. Just in mid-May, this happened. Vessels are seized before they can deliver life-saving aid. And still, the vision that launched them endures. Proof that even when compassion is captured, it is never truly defeated. In that persistence, I see what history still hopes for. That the impulse to care will one day overcome the impulse to control. Every time we reach across fear, every time we choose empathy over apathy, we grant history a brief exhale, a soft pause in which humanity can breathe anew. But pause alone does not heal. What then can save us from the weariness of this repetition? How do we rise from the ruins to keep building? Nietzsche once imagined eternal recurrence, to live our lives again exactly the same forever. It was his test of affirmation. Could we live and love existence so completely that we would welcome even its pain to return? But perhaps the nobler challenge is the opposite. Not to repeat what was, but to begin again. To live once bravely and differently. To invent a gesture, a word, an approach. To nurture a friendship that history has not yet seen. And here, Anna Arendt turns the page. She who saw her century drowned in cruelty, still marveled at every birth as a chance for the world to start anew. She wrote, "The birth of a new people and the new beginning, the action that they are capable of by virtue of being born, only the full experience of this capacity can bestow upon human affairs faith and hope." But natality for Arendt isn't only about infants. It's about possibility. The power of human action to interrupt the predictable, to ground hope in the new. She pivots us away from mortality toward birth. From the question of how we end to the question of how we begin. And in that birth lies the capacity to act, to unfold what no one could fully foresee. That capacity alone can rescue human affairs from entropy. Every newcomer brings something irreducibly singular into the world, making plurality not an abstraction, but the condition of our shared life. And yet this miracle is fragile. It must be sustained by public life, by speech, by institutions, so that beginnings are not swallowed by repetition and decline. In natality over mortality, the promise of a vibrant human world resides. Every time we forgive instead of retaliate, listen instead of lecture, cooperate instead of compete, we midwife a new beginning. Each act of care is proof that history's script is not fixed. To live humanely is to practice natality every day. To refuse to spare script, to take the pen back from history's tired hand, and to write a new first line. This is how justice grows. Not from punishment, but from imagination. Not from perfect systems, but from the daily practice of dignity. Recognizing the pattern of injustice allows us to wake. Resisting complicity keeps us awake. But imagination lets us dream while we're awake. Every time we imagine a kinder possibility, we become, in our sense, newborn. And the world, for one fleeting moment, is born again with us. Let's remember the courage of our ethical culture founders. They were not guardians of old certainties. They were rebels for a gentler world. Felix Adler dreamed of ethical fellowship beyond creed. Spencer took that dream and built it with her hands. They did not create ethical culture to ensure that history would continue. They created so that we could evolve. If we are to honor them, we must inherit their audacity. We must look at our own institutions, our own habits, our own fears, and ask, where have we begun repeating ourselves? And what could we invent instead? That's not betrayal. That is fidelity to the ethical spirit. Recognizing the patterns of injustice is not enough. Resisting complicity is not enough. The humanist calling is larger still. To imagine the world that does not yet exist, and to build it with our bare, hopeful hands. Imagine politics rooted in empathy. economies devoted to human flourishing, cultures courageous enough to choose curiosity over certainty. These are not naive dreams. They are sketches of what the next chapter of humanity could look like if we choose imagination over fear. Every time we choose cooperation over domination, we edit history. Every time we choose compassion over convenience, we rest history's weary head. Every time we create art, justice, or friendship, we offer history a new line to learn. Because history, dear friends, is tired. And maybe the kindest thing we can do for it is to surprise it. To give it, at last, a plot twist worth watching. Let the next act begin. Written in the ink of empathy, staged by the courage of ordinary people, directed by ethics and illuminated by hope. Because humanism is not a creed, it's an invitation. An invitation to stop the reruns and invent the sequel. Thank you.
Out there for Q&A.
Oh, Q&A, yes. Jill, first.
Just wondered what your thoughts are with this Pentagon removing 180 religions from,
Yes.
including humanism.
I had big thoughts about that. I posted about it on Ethical Society's Facebook page
Oh,
yesterday.
I missed it.
No, Mid-River shared the post,
Oh,
so
that was you, okay.
yeah, that was me.
Oh, very good.
It's terrible. Every person, like, we have a leader in training who is in the military, and his goal is to be a humanist chaplain in the military. And we had some pushback in ethical culture, like, do we really want to be a part of the war machine? There are humanists in the military who deserve support,
Yes, ma'am.
love, and care. My son is one of them, right? And on his paperwork, he had humanists. I don't know what he's going to do about it, right?
Other.
Right, he'll be other. Atheist was removed too. So it's just ridiculous. This is Christian nationalism, rearing its ugly head. Again, it's history repeating itself,
Right.
but we're not powerless. We have to speak out. And like I said, that speaking out is the beginning, the awareness, the speaking out, and then what ethical action do you have the capacity to commit to and can follow through on? But individuals have to weigh in their own capacity for activism, of course. But if there's anything you can do, write your congressperson to tell them that you oppose this change, to call it the Department of Defense, right? We know language matters because look at them trying to dismantle all of the language around our institutions. And I think the proof that people are powerful is in their behavior to oppress us. But yeah, I'm really upset about that with a son in the Coast Guard who is a humanist.
You raised him right.
Thank you. He had to convince me that the Coast Guard was a good place for it.
Do you have any recommendations for, because obviously there's historic texts on humanism. Do you have any either newer authors or sort of more budding humanist recommendations?
For specifically about like the history of ethical culture?
Yeah,
or
humanism.
or humanism in general?
Yeah, so humanism is a big tent, right? You have religious humanism, or an ethical humanism, you have secular humanism, you have just humanism. So it's interesting because some people would even argue in our movement that we're not humanists. So it's like when you have a community of free thinkers, they can just free think anything they want, right? But I think it depends on who you are, on how you label what your humanism is to you. So I know specifically about like the ethical culture piece of it, and I don't think Felix Adler ever called himself a humanist. We just kind of adopted that, got into that fold, especially with the humanist manifestos. So I think those are a really good place to start. There are official humanist manifestos, the ethical culture leaders, the American Humanist Association, and other flavors of humanists all came together, and they've been rewritten throughout history. The most recent one, rewrite, was like 30 years ago. But I think that speaks to our history in a lot of ways, as in, we don't have a scripture, we can rewrite the rules, you know, and you can, it's really interesting to watch how they evolve over time. Like, what do we owe each other, what do we owe ourselves? So I would start with the Humanist Manifestos. They're free, they're online, they're not that long. And then I do have a We Are Ethical Culture course that specifically dives into the history of ethical culture and the founding of the movement, but then also goes into our values and how we can live ethical action. That's a free online course. So, and it's asynchronous. There's a cohort, but you can also just do it on your own. So if you wanted to email me, I'm ljett, L-J-E-T-T, @aeu.org. I could send you that. And then maybe some other humanist books. I'll have to check my shelf. I've read all the Felix Adler books. They're very dry. Every once in a while, he will say something just so profoundly beautiful, though. So it's kind of like digging through something to find that little gem. So, I mean, it's worth it, especially if you're going to be an ethical culture leader. But it doesn't really touch, like, a historic. Right? There is a book I'm thinking about, but I can't not remember the name of it. So reach out to Jill or email me, and I'll hook you up.
Thank you.
Yes?
Louise, I appreciated the description about Adler being the architect and Anna Garland Spencer being the builder. For me, Felix Adler is problematic, right?
Yes.
He's got some racist and some misogynistic, statements from back in the day. So to see her as, also kind of a co-leader, that's comforting to me because, he's problematic. But I like that description. That was pretty cool.
And he did hold some beliefs that we would not hold today, or values,
Right.
but he changed, right? He changed his mind. He was against women's suffrage. And when I found that out, I was like, he did change his mind, came around. Particularly around the thought of assimilation, so his racist ideas of assimilation. And I'm not defending him, but a lot of intellectuals at the time were just like, let's make black people like white people, and then everything will be great. And he had a relationship with W.E.B. Du Bois, who said, no, black culture, black identity is valuable. And Adler listened to him, and through that friendship, moved past some of that racism, right? But yes, and I'm sure Anna was very religious, right? We would not agree with Anna Garland Spencer's theology because she actually did believe in God. And Felix believed in the ethical manifold, so they had all this metaphysical things going on that we would embrace today. But I think the important lesson is to, yes, talk about the ways in which he was problematic, but also the ways he changed his mind, and it was through relationships. So it really reinforced his whole idea of you don't live ethics alone. Ethics are lived in relationship with others. But if you are not in a relationship with others, you don't know where you fall short, you don't know where you excel, because you don't have that ethical tension. And he thought in that tension, that's where the growth happens. Why ethical societies are so important, for all these different perspectives and free-thinking people to come together and talk about the world's biggest issues and how to solve the problems and feel less alone. So ethical culture is a movement of relationships. So I just love how those relationships he had helped him change his mind. And he wasn't perfect. And I love Anna Garland Spencer. She was amazing. She basically invented social work before we even had a word for it. And yeah, I really like her a lot. She has some great quotes too.
So I've been observing Felix Adler, and I've been watching all kinds of podcasts. Chris Hayes interviewing a woman who wrote a book about the Bund, the Jewish Bund, and this would have been the time period that Felix Adler was growing up.
Okay.
under, with his father being a rabbi.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Jewish Bund and the Zionists were strongly opposed to one another. And the Zionists became the dominant culture while the Bund kind of evolved into what Felix and, that whole movement of caring became.
And secular
Yes.
Judaism, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I've been curious why he developed all of this ethical idealism, and that I think might be a source, and I'm wondering about your thoughts about that.
Well, I know Felix went to study in Heidelberg in Germany, and he wrote about how he saw all these people, and they thought all these different things, and they believed all these different ways, and I thought, like, how, they're not all going to hell. That's ridiculous. Kind of like, that was kind of his first thought, and then just decided he didn't really believe in God the way that he had been raised because of his, I call it, it's like the edge effect. So sociologists study if you go and spend time with people who are really different from you, and you solve problems with them, and you create relationships with them, your creativity skyrockets. And they can literally measure creativity with different tests they can give you. So just that exposure. So I think him going and studying in Germany, meeting all these, like it happens to a lot of people that go to college, right? You meet all these new people, you learn all these new things, and you just change. You change your mind about a lot of things. Ethical culture was founded in 1876. Felix was supposed to take over his father's congregation. But when he came back from studying abroad, he's basically like, I don't believe in this like I used to. But I think this is too important for us to just forget. And they're like, see you later. So he kind of had to start ethical culture, but he took it back to his congregation, kind of like, get on my side, It's interesting because I hadn't known about that dichotomy, and I'm going to look into it because I find that really interesting.
He knows the name of the book. Crabtree.
The place we live is our country. I think that's, instead of, building another country like in Gaza, Palestine, just accept where you live. Yeah, I think crab, apple, I don't remember her first name.
We'll have to get that to you.
Yeah, I'd love to look into that. Any other questions? I saw a hand. Yeah.
I just wanted to say you did a great job. Thank you. Great talk.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I like one little thing I want to put on a bumper sticker is you said something like, when the impulse to care overpowers the impulse to control. I want that on a bumper sticker right there.
I want that to happen in real life. so many of our systems, and we have to think systematically too, and it's hard because so many of our systems are created to perpetuate this, I call it low road, low quality capitalism.
Yeah.
Because that's what we have in our country. It is just, it's the worst. And it sprung from our practices of enslaving people. You can literally follow, again, history, the through line. First mortgage in our country was on a black body. So, and now the way that they've structured enslaved people's lives, they just kind of, that's the way we run our corporations, right? Managers, and so, yeah. And until we can get past that, if we have $1.8 billion to pay insurrectionists, we can give health care to every single American in this country. If we have money to kill people in other countries, we need that money to take care of our own.
No, not every rich person is inherently evil.
No,
But and then there are a lot of very good people that are empathetic. But unfortunately, the powers that be, led by our president, the theme, and he said it many times, I don't believe in empathy. I don't believe in empathy.
they've weaponized it.
I don't believe in it. How could you not believe in empathy? But that's what we're fighting against.
It's the corruption of greed.
Don't believe in empathy.
Enriching yourself
I got mine, the
first.
heck with you.
Yeah, it's terrible. because we're here to take care of each other.
Right.
I did a platform once, the Chicago Ethical Circle asked me to consider the question, what do we owe one another? We owe each other nothing short of human flourishing. Not just survival, but happiness and joy. Like I feel like there's a lack of imagination if we look around in this world, you know? It's perplexing. Yes?
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's easy not, excuse me, it's easy not to live in empathy when you've never had to struggle at all for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if there's no struggle, there's no need for empathy. Well, the rest of us, I mean, like, even like, I'm sure he's problematic too, but like Bill Gates started his own company. He struggled to do that. But Trump has never had to struggle to, his father just gave him money, and then from that point on, he just got out of things and got out of things. So, you know.
The income inequality has us to the point where we don't even live in the same realities anymore.
Right, right.
So we can't even, some of our elected officials don't know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. My parents were teenagers who never graduated high school. My mom was 17 years old when she had me. Like, we were poor. And my dad dug us out of poverty. He was a truck driver. He finally got on at Illinois Power. He got a good job. It was a union job. The union pulled my family up out of poverty. And then we're seeing unions being attacked. Why do you think look at what they're targeting? Those are the things that work. And another thing is too, this big machine, it takes a lot of money to oppress us. They don't have infinite coffers. So we can't give up, right? It will give. It can't last forever. But then once we think of all of the progress that we've lost, so once we gain this progress, we have to safeguard it. Look at, the system is set up in a way where Trump is he's able to manipulate it far too easily.
Right.
So we've got to revisit that. We've got to have safeguards to protect our democracy. And I'm gonna get my little soapbox real quick. It is no surprise to me that at a time when newspapers and news outlets are being decimated and destroyed, that the corruption is at this astonishing level, because a well-informed electorate is essential to a healthy democracy, and we don't have that without media, honest media that's not in it for the money. I was a newspaper editor right when I graduated high school for a small county newspaper, and I to this day think they should be nonprofits. Because I would literally have Joe Schmo Insurance coming to me telling me he's going to pull his ad because he doesn't like something I wrote about city council. And that was just a little microcosm, right? Think of that playing out on a huge scale. And the corporations. Citizens United has got to be overturned. Look at the devastating consequences that has had on our democracy. I'm going to stop. I think you had a question.
Well,
I could go on forever.
I do, and it's kind of going back to your original
Yeah.
topic here. I mean, throughout history, it has repeated itself. And I've been thinking about this all week, and I'm trying to figure out why it has done that. And the only thing that I can come up with is that people believe that this time it'll be different. That old saying, doing the same thing over and over, is the definition of insanity. But is that really what's happening historically? That we think that, okay, we had this German leader who did all these things, now we have this American leader, but this American leader, it will be different.
Right.
Is that really what's happening?
Well, I think the pattern is one that perpetuates wealth in the hands of certain people. I might sound a little conspiracy minded here, but I think some people benefit from history repeating itself. And those, but you're right, people like us say, yeah, oh, that could never happen here. That could never happen to me. And that kind of goes to the comment we had over here where it's like, why don't they have empathy? Well, they've never had to live through anything. And you'll watch them too. Oh, suddenly their daughter is gay and now they love gay people and they're totally for gay marriage. Or, you know, so it's just, it has to happen to them, to matter to them. I think the power imbalance keeps history on repeat. But we actually have so much power. Like I said, in their efforts to silence us, to stop us, shows us that we have power. They spend a lot of money to oppress people. So it's both. It's us throwing our hands up in the air and, you know, saying, or say, no, you're being hyperbolic. This isn't fascism. When then you can look it up and it's like every single thing that defines fascism is happening in our country. And they tell me I'm being, you know, Chicken Little because I'm using the F word, fascism.
Yeah, and I just wanted to comment on that because I think the circumstances that led to, let's say, Hitler, you know, was, you know, driven by the population who, you know, they were, you know, I don't know, I'm not a historian, but, you know, they were recovering from World War I, and they were people in decline, and they were, you know, humiliated by, you know, by the world, and, you know, this person was their savior, you know, and was going to bring them back into, you know, the limelight of the world. And that's how Trump positioned himself. You know, we're a nation in decline, and we need a strong leader to pull us out of there. So we're all still like experiencing those same like feelings, like, you know, oh, our nation's in decline. What do? We need to find somebody to lead us, and that's kind of where we go, instinctively. And yeah, so it's almost like, of course, it's going to happen again. It's like, yeah, you've got a population of people who want a strong leader. That's the basis. And then you get a leader, and then they do whatever they want, and it can be good or bad and ugly, right? So.
And our short memories also allow this to happen over and over again. Like, there is a myth that a certain political party is really great at handling the economy. When? When is this going to happen? Right? And I love that you talked about we can all agree something's wrong, but we can't agree on how to fix it. But I can guarantee you how to fix it isn't tearing each other apart, which seems to be politics in the United States right now. It's tough. So, but that's, we find those commonalities and then try to build from there. But yes, so people are like, they're hurting. And so they elect someone that has tricked them.
Yeah.
And with promises.
Right.
So, yeah.
Although I do think maybe for the first time in a while, there are people who are standing up. For example, you never heard of Pope.
Yes.
You know, they're always, well, God bless us, and we're all gonna work together, but they don't. This guy over there is Southside Chicago, in my opinion. He's out there. I'm not coming to your dam, well, it doesn't say dam, but I'm not coming to your 20th, 250th reunion. Are all these performers. Now, I'm not a country music person, but in some realms, hey, they're big stuff. And they're not going, and people, maybe there's a reason. Why? And so I think, no, we're knocking the wall down, but there are little chips all over the place.
And I think you're connecting some dots here in a really interesting way, because back in the day, like the Carnegies, like they were publicly shamed if they did not invest in shared life, right? They built concert halls, they did all this philanthropy. We don't do that anymore. That's why they've weaponized empathy. So that they can't be made, no man or person is an island, right? No one is a self-made millionaire or billionaire. They relied on the society, the infrastructure, everything that we pay for with our tax money. So it's ridiculous that they wouldn't want to give back. And we used to like kind of, like, we won't support your businesses if you're a bad person, but we've kind of abandoned that. Right. So like, I encourage boycotts. Where do you put your money? Money is how they get power. So it's really important to think about that. Yes.
So a couple things. So like on the whole, like not believing in empathy, I can see it from his point of view because empathy doesn't get him anything. It's a sunk cost to him.
Right.
So there's no value to it if you look at his bottom line or whatever. So like seeing it from that perspective, it's like, yeah, it doesn't make sense in that realm. like you said, because there's no pushback. If there was that pushback, then there would be value to empathy.
Right.
And the other piece was, you mentioned like the social media thing, and I'm not huge into this, but like recently there's like stuff in China where China is pushing for, if you're on a platform, if you have a digital presence, if you're an influencer, you must be educated in what you're talking about. And they have these strict regulations that they can put in place. And it's hard to balance that because you see, China, I'm not huge into the politics of it, but they're going out to other countries, building bridges and roads, and we're out there bombing and rockets, but also they're, burning coal to facilitate all these things, and they don't have, these, like, environmental aspects a lot of Americans, I think, push for that might, there's just a push and pull of like, we don't, obviously, everyone in this room probably wouldn't want to be part of a communist. Potentially, like, there's just a lot of authoritarianism there, but we have that now. So where do you find that balance?
Yeah, at least they're like building trains, right?
Like, if it's hard to like have that and like see the whole picture and go, where do I put my action? I want to put action somewhere. What's impactful? Is it going green? Is it human? Like, where is the impact that is going to get us to this like place? And everyone needs to pick their own lane. You can't all do the same thing because then no one's looking at the other side.
And we still have to work together.
Right.
Community organizing is so very hard. But it all starts with relationships and building, know your neighbors. Like, just that little empathy will ripple outward, right? Do what you can now, today. Don't wait till you're perfect to act. And there's lots of different, who's doing the good work, plug into them, because they will support and help you, and they will love your help and support as well. There was a couple things you touched on, but yeah, you're exactly right. What do we value as a society? That needs to shift. We can't be like, oh, the stock market's great, right? So everything's great. No, that doesn't affect me at all. Like, gas is outrageous. Like, if you think about the economy, and they're always like, it's the economy, stupid. Well, then why? If it really is about the economy, for the average voter, why do we keep electing people who are basically liquidating our country, outsourcing everything to private, so they're rich crony friends? We have oligarch, cronyism. Corruption is at an all-time high. So we have to take our government back. We have to end Citizens United. Like, I would start there. Could someone please do that? Please. Because I think we're really looking at the repercussions of it in today's political landscape. And then how do we define success? Is success you're rich and you live in a big mansion and you laud over everyone? Or is success you live in a vibrant community where children are loved and raised and taught to be ethical, wonderful human beings that take care of each other? Like, that's more important to me than any money. So we need to redefine that, and we need to be loud about it. So thank you.